College football season is right around the corner. What futures bet should you be getting in right now? You're about to find out next on Bet on It. At last, football season is almost here. I can hardly wait. Kelly Stewart, Marco D'Angelo, Gianni the Greek. All right, boys, we're going to get right into it. And last year, our college football preview show ran a little too late. And then I saw some criticism about people saying, well, nobody breaks down the small conferences. And that's because nobody really cares about the small conferences. So we're going to break down the Power Four conferences. And if you guys are mad in the comment section, you tell me, and maybe we'll do another preview show where we break down the MAC and the Sun Belt. But today, we're breaking down the SEC, the Big 12, the SEC, and of course, the Big 10. So let's get right on into it. VR, I'm going to let you go first. We're going to talk about the ACC. Last year, I did a contest on Splash, and we excluded the ACC. We did that too again this year, and I got a lot of criticism for it. But I said, the ACC is just not that good of a conference top to bottom. And I turned out to be correct. They, at very best, were a run-of-the-mill type conference. Do you expect a better couple of teams to come out of here this year? Do you think anything about Clemson, Florida State? Kind of break down this Power Four conference for us.
Well, it's Miami and then everybody else. But when one team's so heavily favored, you have to look elsewhere because you're going to get a ton of value when that's the case. In all sports, again, when one team is so dominant as far as the betting market's concerned, you got to find some value. And teams like Louisville, SMU, the second tier teams is where you want to look. Now, remember, in NFL college football, you're talking about a small sample size of games that they play. That's why teams outperform and underperform their metrics, unlike Major League Baseball. When we look at Major League Baseball, there's 162 games. The first place teams usually win about 55, 56, 57%. Maybe two teams in all of baseball are going to win 60% of their games every year. Why? Because there's parity in all major sports. But when you have a small sample size season, you just don't get that teams playing to what the data reflects. And that's why, even though I may not have any team power rated to win more than 10 and a half games, let's say, someone is going to win 11 games. Multiple teams are going to win 11 games. There'll be a 12-game winner because teams outperform and underperform their metrics. And more importantly, injuries. Like when you're looking this far out, you want to find some teams that are going to give you equity. They may not cash a ticket, but they'll put you in a position to profit off your ticket. And for me, I have to look at Louisville because they're number 2 as far as my power rating goes in the ACC. I have Miami number 1, no doubt, although I do think Miami's a little bit overvalued. I know they're 7th in the AP poll. I have them right around there also in my power ratings. I just think my rating number would have them lower as far as point spreads go. Their ranking is on point, but I think their rating is where they're going to be off. And I think that's where fading Miami will give you a little bit of opportunities. Now, with Louisville, the question is the quarterback. You got a high-profile quarterback, but you have no sample size. He pretty much sat on the bench at Ohio State for 3 years and threw the ball 20-plus times, let's say. But you're not at Ohio State by accident. So obviously there's a lot of potential there. But you just don't have a spot where you have a plug-in quarterback. Like we see that in college football a lot with the transfers, where you have a guy that you already know. He's played 2 seasons at this school. You know what he's capable of doing. Now you're putting him with more skill position players, a better offensive line, and you know what you should be expecting. We don't know that yet with this young quarterback of Louisville. That's the question. But fortunately, you have a running back and a skill position player in Isaac Brown who should take a lot of the pressure off just because he's just so dangerous, running the ball, catching the ball, scores touchdowns. Is exactly what you need for a new quarterback like that who, again, hasn't thrown a lot of balls. The other problem with Louisville was they gave up a lot of sacks last year. I think 25 after just giving up 15 in 2024. So, you could chalk that up to being a little bit unlucky when you have that big of a drastic change from one year to another, coupled with injuries, which in football is key. And we talk about skill position injuries, but the offensive line that is not talked about actually plays such a major factor. So with all of that said, I don't think you find any value betting Miami to win the ACC. So you got to look elsewhere. I do look at teams like I'm looking at Clemson's, looking at SMU's. They're all much lower power rating wise than my second best team in the ACC, which is Louisville. Now, on a neutral field, I make Louisville about a 5.5 point dog to Miami. So Miami's that strong, but you're giving me 7-1. And at 7-1, my break even's about 12.5%. Again, with injuries, with a little bit of luck, I think they should be more in that 20% range. So I think it's an overlay opportunity. So I'll give out Louisville. I'll tell you what, the ones that I got to the window with and released to subscribers, I have not bet this or released it to subscribers. There's just been better spots on the board. But if I had to bet the ACC, I would be on Louisville. And again, hope some pieces fall my way and I get a little bit lucky with 7-1 ticket. It's a long shot, but again, there's just too much chalk at the top with Miami.
All right. Well, we appreciate VR taking the bottom Power 4 conference. And now Marco's going to take the best Power 4 conference in the Big Ten. Yes, I said it. I actually got into debate about it at SEC Media Days, and they didn't like that very much. But I do think top to bottom, this is the hardest conference to handicap. Marco, we've got Kirk Cignetti just going off at Big Ten Media Days, excuse me. We've got everybody in sports media loving Oregon, but you're going a different way.
Well, no, I love Oregon too. I'm giving you two plays here in the Big Ten. I'm going to give you who I think is going to win the Big Ten, and I'm going to give you a season win total out of the Big Ten. And yeah, put me on that list with Oregon, and why not? You look at this Oregon team, Kelly, it starts with the quarterback. They got Dante Moore back, okay? This was a surprise. Most people thought he was going to go to the NFL after last season, but he decided to come back for one more year. And I think it's going to just make his stock that much higher going into the draft next year. And he's a legitimate Heisman candidate this year. And why not? Look at the team. It's loaded. You start with, they got two stud running backs. You've got, Jordan Davidson ran for 667 yards last year and 15 TDs. They got another running back, Hill, who was a game breaker last year. He averaged 8.7 yards per carry. Those two combined for 1,300 yards, and they're coming back. And that was done as being a freshman. Depth. If something happens to Dante Moore, Oregon bought themselves a huge insurance policy. Now, the plan is he'll be the starter next year. He'll wait. But if something happens early, this season doesn't go up in smoke because they got Dylan Raiola, who came over from Nebraska. And all the fanfare that he had going to Nebraska for a backup insurance policy. Then you look at the wide receivers on this team. They are absolutely loaded. They got five-star talent all over the place, which creates matchup problems because they can switch them up in formations and get, favorable mismatches in coverages. Then you look at the defense, and that might even be the best part of this team is the defense. Their depth on defense is huge. This could end up at the end of the season being the best defense in football. Now, the other intangible why I like Oregon so much is, remember, they had to adjust coming from the Pac-12 going to the Big Ten. Now they've had a couple years under their belt. The scheduling, everybody questioned yet, I can't wait to see these California schools go and play in the Big Ten, Penn State in, December or late November, with the weather and such. They've had a couple of seasons to get all of that out of the way. Giving me plus 260 on this team, I think, is a gift. And I'm going to take Oregon to win the Big Ten. Now, with that season win total that I told you about, I'm going to talk about Penn State. And again, this is the power of shopping. And there's going to be a debate. It's too chalky to go that way. Well, I'm going to tell you another way how to do this. Right now in Vegas, I could go to Circa and I could grab Penn State over 8.5 wins. But it's chalky. It's minus 190. Or I can go, across the street or up the strip, I should say, and go to one of the several Caesars properties, and I could bet over 9.5 and get plus 118. Well, we know that when they put up season win totals, they're not going to give you they don't like giving you the even number because they don't want to write pushes. That's why you got an 8.5, you got a 9.5. Well, if you want an insurance policy and make it 9, I do expect them to win 10 games. But if you want to make it 9, put half your wager on Penn State over 8.5 at minus 190 and take half of it at over 9.5 at plus 118. Brings down the juice, gives you that. If it lands at 9, you can break even in your wagers there. The other thing about Penn State, why I like them, and I know that VR is going to talk about them later and Kelly's going to talk about them later, is I do like the coaching change. Was not a fan of James Franklin. The last few years, that offense was horrendous. And I know people are going to say, Matt Campbell's offense was no juggernaut at Iowa State. No, it wasn't, but it was consistent. And what I like is he's bringing 13 of his players over with him. And I like that consistency. And the most important key to all of that is the quarterback, Rocco Beck. This is a guy that I think is going to put Penn State, offensively, they've been challenged. So even though Iowa State doesn't light it up, this is going to be a step forward, in my opinion. And I like the continuity of bringing so many key players with him because it's plug and play. And that's the difference in today's college landscape. Remember, when a coach used to take over a team, it was usually a couple-year process to get his players there, get them used to his system. But when you can bring the core of the team that you already had with you, it's plug and play. And we see these coaches have great success more quickly than in the past in college football. I'm going with Penn State over the season win totals. Take it at 8.5. I don't mind laying 190. Yeah, it might be chalky, but I only got to get to 9 instead of 10. But if you want to split it up, that is okay as well.
Marco, it's too chalky for me. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. I think my threshold's like minus 140, maybe minus 145 these days. I just can't do it. VR, I want to use this as a moment, as a talking point before we get into the Big 12. What do you recommend for our audience? Marco says, hey, my threshold is minus $190, $2, whatever that may be. Maybe that's because he's a baseball bettor. But for me, I say my threshold is probably 135 minus 140. What do you recommend for people and how they should decide what their threshold is?
It depends what you're doing this for. That's the bottom line. Like if you're betting for profit, meaning you're taking your hard-earned money that you could invest elsewhere. You could put it in S&P 500. You could buy Bitcoin. You could put it in a real estate fund. And even if you don't have money to buy a house, there's funds you could invest, like whatever you could put that money to good use. If you decide I'm going to use it to invest in the sports betting market, then the only thing that should matter to you is what's the betting line compared to the true implied win probability. Meaning if the true line should be minus 300 and it's minus 200, you should fire, you should unload. Just the only question is bet size. Like that's the thing you need to figure out. Bet sizing correctly, managing your risk so that you end up making money with your investment. Now, if you're just a recreational bettor that's enjoys betting football, every weekend, that, you're not doing it every day. You're not sitting there following markets and shit like that. Then I think in you doing it the approach that you just mentioned, where you set a cutoff and you don't pass that threshold, where you set a cutoff of like minus 150, definitely not above 200. And here's why: because the room for error is really slim. You start laying these minus 300s, minus 400s, and you don't have a ton of experience where you know how to manage risk very efficiently. It's the easiest way to build a huge hole for yourself and lose your bankroll. Because what happens is you find yourself, after losing one bet, down 3, 4, 5 positions. Now, do you have the patience and discipline to get back to even by having to win your next 5 bets in a row? Or do you need to win it back on one big bet? That's the part you need to figure out. So if you don't have that professional, treat it like a business, pay like a business discipline, you just got to be honest with ourselves. Then I think you set that threshold at about that 150, no higher than minus 200 range, where, again, the margin for error is slim and you're not going to dig a big hole for yourself. With dogs, you're just going to lose the money you put up. You're not going to lose extra. And when you're laying chalk, that's the problem. Again, when you're laying minus 400 and you lose, you now have to win 4 straight bets at 1 unit each to break even. Just to break even. You got to win 5 in a row just to be up a unit after losing to minus 400. So the room for error is very slim. Great advice from Kelly. And when you set those rules, the key is to follow them, to not break them. That's the hardest part. Most of us know what we should be doing. You're not watching this show by accident, and you're not at WagerTalk by accident. It's because there's edges in the sports betting market. It's a beatable market. You just got to learn how to do it. And that's like what we're here for. But again, if you're taking that approach, then I think you have to do it with extreme caution until you figure it out and are managing risk correctly. So yeah, keep that threshold around that price. You'll be okay. Otherwise, for the professionals, just look for value and fire,
All right. If you guys are new to watching Bet On It, this is the kind of stuff I always interject in between the show, because I think we have some really great teachable moments amongst us. Let's get into the Big 12. And of course, I picked this conference. And then I went through 16 teams and I'm going, how am I going to break down this conference in less than 5 minutes? I gave the other guys this threshold and I thought there's so much to say. I have so many opinions here. So we're going to save some of it for later on in the show. We're going to go over some of it right now. And I gave out 2 different bets for free over on wagertalk.com on the free picks page underneath my profile. And we're going to start with the odds on favorite, the team that everybody thinks is the best team in the Big 12. And arguably it's because they have the most money. Right here on the show last year, I gave you guys Texas Tech at 100-1 to win the national championship. And did they make a splash or what? Now, they did not win the national championship, but they at least kind of showed up for the playoffs. At least they got into the playoffs. And I think ultimately 10.5 wins was built around 2 different things for this team. Number 1, Brendan Sorsby, who is no longer going to be with the Red Raiders. They are going to get Will Hammond, a redshirt sophomore with 2 career starts. I don't know. Hammond tore his ACL last October, and I'm not sure he is still going to be cleared for full contact. As of filming today, August 12th, we have not heard 100%. I know Joey McGuire is going to keep that close to the vest for obvious reasons, so keep an eye there. And again, this is the reason why it's a free play. I think there's a lot of unknowns with this team, but ultimately I'm going to be a contrarian. And this schedule looks so easy. Yet they trotted out a 10.5. The toughest team that Texas Tech is going to face this year, arguably Houston, maybe Arizona. But I do think that the Sorsby saga kind of made Texas Tech the villain here in the Big 12. I mentioned when we started this that I am the resident Big 12 girl. So there I am sifting through X and realizing that Texas Tech went from being the fun, lovable cactuses of the internet to those prickly you-know-whats there in Lubbock. And I think everybody is going to be gunning for them. We are asking a lot. We're asking for 11 wins from a not-so-great quarterback who needs to be flawless behind a new rebuilt knee. I don't know, 11 wins. I can get plus 185 on Texas Tech here. I thought that was interesting. Now for the bottom feeders, I gave out Kansas under 5.5 wins, also plus money, 135. This team has now finished back-to-back 5-7 seasons. I think they've got a real shot to make that 3 in a row. Still, as of today, no starter has been named in Lawrence. And I think that that is also very telling because we have Cole Ballard on one side, and he's a redshirt junior as a walk-on. He's worked his way up, started 2 games back in 2023, 108 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, QBR 40. Is Isaiah Marshall probably the better play? Maybe not as a game manager, but as an athlete, he has a much higher ceiling. I think it's very telling that they also have not named a starting quarterback there. But ultimately, I'm taking another gamble on a team that can't finish close games. This team stalled in the red zone multiple times last year, cost them 2 games that could have made them bowl eligible. And again, when you're now inserting a possible game management guy versus an athlete, that's not how a 5-7 team finds a 6th win. The schedule also does them no favors. 5 true road games, Arizona State and London. We know how those across the pond games go. I think it's going to be a rough tread for KU here. And for those that are saying, Kelly, you're just a homer, just wait till we get into that K-State breakdown. There are 2 coin flips in this schedule mix. Ultimately, I think 4-8 is going to be the ceiling for the Jayhawks in 2026. We're going to get to the BYU Cougars later on in the show when we break down the Big 12, because I do have a futures bet on them that I really love. But let's talk about my Kansas State Wildcats just for funsies, right? I don't know why else I would want to do that to myself. New head coach Colin Klein, all new coaching staff. By all means, this K-State team with this schedule should win 9 games. That should be the floor. Last year, they had so many arguably ugly, but very close losses. Iowa State by 3 in Dublin, Army by 3, Arizona by 6, Baylor game. They led by 14 in the 4th quarter, pick 6, Avery Johnson blocked last second field goal. I don't know why I'm reliving all of this, but Utah was just the nail in the coffin for that team. They had a 12-point lead in the final minutes versus a top 25 team. Had 472 rushing yards. That was just disgusting. This is a team that is going to need to take those close losses and turn them into wins. Yes, K-State fans, I think K-State has an outside shot to maybe be in Dallas in December. So keep them circled. Again, the floor is 9 wins, Colin Klein. Let's see what you can do with it. We'll get into some more of the Big 12 here later on in the show. But of course, now we've got to talk about the SEC. So we're going to put VR back on. The meeting days was interesting, VR, and I walked around, and I've got another play later on in the show telling everybody who I think is going to win this. Arguably, Texas is the front runner once again. Arguably, everybody wants to know about Alabama. Every radio program up to tell us about Alabama, Kelly. It's not going to be either one of those teams, is it?
I should have went 30 seconds with Louisville because I don't have much on that conference. I mean, I told you, I have Miami, I think it's a little bit overvalued, overrated, and there's not much elsewhere, and they're probably going to win that conference. But here's where we have a lot to take advantage of because these are teams we're going to be finding a lot of value on and off throughout the season because of the attention that the SEC gets. In fact, Ole Miss, Georgia, Texas A&M, Alabama, Longhorns, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt. 6 teams all in the top 15 when the season ended last year as far as the rankings go. So yes, these are the teams that odds makers need to pay attention to, bookmakers are paying attention to, and are going to attract a ton of public action. Now, we could take advantage because there's rankings out, the college football rankings. And you know, I trust my ratings more than I trust those rankings. And we're looking at some overvalued, undervalued SEC teams. Now, let me just get straight to the bottom line. Who I think offers value to win the SEC, that's going to be Alabama at plus 900. And here's why. Georgia, top power rated team in the SEC. No disagreement there. All right. Right behind them, I have Mississippi, Alabama, and Texas. Now, Mississippi, Alabama, and Texas are all within a point and a half of each other. So it's a coin flip amongst those. Here's the bottom line, though. Texas, too difficult of a schedule. So cut it down now between Alabama and Mississippi. And Mississippi kept jumping out at me. But the problem I have is they have a more difficult schedule than Alabama, and they're more reliant on their offense being top 5 in efficiency as opposed to their defense, where that's where Alabama will have the advantage. with that secondary back. Like, it's going to be hard to put up points against Alabama. And because of that, they'll have time to get a quarterback acclimated and able to run the system efficiently, because that's the question mark. No Ty Simpson. He's now with the Rams. What are they going to do? So until Alabama, there's any kind of nail in that coffin. And again, there is none, because it's Alabama. It's cliche, but they reload. And until I see the team, the institution start to decline, at 9-1, you got to look there. Now, I also going to give you some actionable information on a win total that I went under, and that's the Texas Longhorns. I went under 9.5. I sent that out to subscribers as a 4% play at -130, and here's why. Again, I don't have any dog in any of these fights. I do not care. When it comes to college football, I don't have favorite teams. I don't have anybody I cheer for or cheer against. I only look at the data. I'm as unbiased as you're ever going to get. So if I'm against or on your team, it's not because I'm a fan. It's simply because that's what the data tells me. When I look at Texas, okay, they're a strong team, obviously. They're not ranked by accident, okay? But here's the problem with Texas. They're not a top 10 offense or top 10 defense, believe it or not, in efficiency. They're right outside of both. So they don't have that like top 1, 2, or 3 in either offense or defense where they're just that dominant, better than anyone else there. Like Ohio State, number 1 defense, no one's better. Indiana, number 1 offense, no one's better, at least on paper going into the season. We don't have that with Texas, all right? More importantly, they have the toughest schedule, number 1 in college football. And you're playing in the SEC, which is arguably the toughest division conference, forgive me. It's not a fade of Texas as saying they're phony or they're not a good team. It's the schedule. It's what you're up against. Strength of schedule is everything. And I really have them winning about 8 games, 8 point something. I would be very, very surprised if they got to 9 wins. And I think that's why you get so much value elsewhere, because I think Georgia's a little bit overrated. They're 3rd in the polls right now. I have them 5th. So I have them a little bit lower. And that's where I think with the SEC, again, such good teams, you're usually not going to get 6-1, 7-1, 8-1 on a team that's capable like Mississippi, a team like capable like Alabama. They're very capable either to win the conference. And again, with injuries, with good and bad luck, like so much has to happen. All these teams last year, they all went Ole Miss, Georgia, A&M, Alabama, all went 7-1 in conference. Throw in Texas, Oklahoma, Vandy that went 6-2. Like, these teams win games. They win football games. But during the season, we'll find times to fade them with the point spread or bet them with the point spread because of that overvalued or undervalued label that we like to put on teams. So real quickly, we're taking Alabama at +900 to win the conference. Didn't get to the window with that, but that would be my bet. And Texas under, I did get to the window with premium play to subscribers under 9.5. So that's a little SEC look behind the curtain before the season starts.
VR, we're going to talk a little bit more about the SEC when we get to the national championship. I've got a team out of the SEC I'm curious if you or Marco agree on. But next, we're going to get into the playoffs. Marco, I'm going to let you go first. And this is a team I didn't talk about in the Big 12 because I saw you were going to talk about them. But I don't know how I feel about this Utah Utes team. That was one of those teams I was kind of back and forth on. Tell me why you think they're going to get into the college football playoff.
Well, Kelly, this is a team that was good to me last year. I had a big play on them for season win total, and I think they're going to fly under the radar coming into this year because why not? You know, longtime coach Kyle Whittingham's gone, and people are going to expect a drop-off. But Utah's planned for this eventual transition. Back in 2023, they named longtime defensive coordinator Morgan Scaley as the head coach in waiting. They knew this day was going to come eventually, and they wanted to keep him, at Utah, not have him take a job somewhere else. So they named him the head coach in waiting. So really, I don't see a lot of change going to happen because, he was under Whittingham. And, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is a team that plays smash mouth football. They had a lot of success in the final years of the Pac-12 when they joined the Pac-12. Why? Because they were one of the only teams that did play hard-nosed football, good defense, and was a physical team. That was key in the Pac-12 because I always, looked at the Pac-12 and it was, I'll say it. They were a soft conference. They didn't play physical football. They were a finesse team. It was offense first. Well, where did Utah go after the Pac-12 busted up? Yeah, they went to the Big 12. What's the Big 12, Kelly? It's not a big physical conference. Very similar to the Pac-12. They like to go up and down the field. Teams don't play great defense. In Utah, with their style, frustrates a lot of teams. They bring back quarterback Devon Dampier. He is a dual threat quarterback. He had 3,300 total yards last year, 34 total touchdowns, throwing and rushing. He played most of the season with a sports hernia last year, so he wasn't even 100%. He's back. They got a stud at running back. Wayshawn Parker, just under 1,000 rushing yards last year, averaged 6.6 yards per carry, and they upgraded the wide receivers. They brought in a pair of all Mountain West transfers that combined for 1,700 yards receiving last year. I think this is a situation for them that they can sneak into the playoffs because the Big 12 is going to get, respect. It's not the Big 10 and it's not the SEC. I get that. But I see two teams coming out of here, and I see Utah making a run in the Big 12. And I see them as one of those top two teams that can get the job done. And I'll ride that defense into sneaking into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's a 2-horse race. We'll get into my team here in a minute, but man, are we talking about Penn State an awful lot today on this show. I guess I should have reviewed and saw how much we had in common. So VR, tell me why you think Penn State is getting into the college football playoff.
Number one, the way they closed out last season, firing their head coach because of that disaster, you expect that team to come in a little bit undervalued. No one's racing to back Penn State after the way they closed out that season. But there's still a university that has that name recognition that attracts 4- and 5-star recruits year in and year out. Now, the question mark for Penn State was the coach. Obviously, you're bringing in a first-year coach, and he's bringing a lot of guys with him from where he was last over there in Iowa State. Now here's the problem. Sharp money went under season win total. Open 9.5, went down to 8.5. I disagree with that. And here's why. I have Penn State power rated as the 11th best team in college football, right out of my top 10. Only 10 teams should be favored over Penn State. Now, they would be about a 10.5 point favorite, underdog, to number 1 Ohio State. But still, we're looking at to make the playoffs. And I'm getting over 3-1 plus 350, where I got to, hit that 1 out of 4 times to break even. They have an easy schedule this year. That stuff jumped out at me. Last year, they lost to Indiana, lost to Ohio State, lost to Oregon, lost to Iowa, lost to UCLA. None of them are on that schedule this season. So Penn State has a very, very easy schedule. In fact, it's like 60th in college football. And when you have a top 10 defense and arguably the 60th toughest schedule, you're going to win a lot of football games. And I like that the coach bringing over his defensive coordinator. So there's at least it's a crew that knows each other. Like they bringing in all kind of transfers and half of his old team like that. I think that's a positive, especially with a new coach, new system, all of that. Again, I think there's a little bit of value at plus 350 for Penn State to make the playoffs. They are my surprise sleeper team. They are, I believe, they will be in the top 10 because they're going to win a lot of football games. In fact, I have them winning right now on paper. I have them winning more games than Alabama. I have them winning more games than Georgia. I have them winning more games than Oregon. I have them winning more games than Mississippi. I have them winning more games than Texas. I have them not winning more games than Texas Tech, because Texas Tech's got a really easy schedule. But I have them winning a lot of football games. And because of that, I think they may be forced to throw a team like Penn State into the playoffs at plus 350. Again, this is why we made so much money betting college football these last how many years, and all that profit last year, because of the rankings. The teams that have the best record have the best rankings, and nothing could be further from the truth in real life. There, we know, you watched a lot of college football to know there's a lot of phony 8-0s out there after the 8th week of the season, but they'll still be ranked in the top 5 because they're 8-0. Penn State's going to be ranked higher than they deserve because they're going to be pretty much undefeated for a while. They're going to win a lot of football games this year, and they're going to be in the playoffs because of that. Again, they'd be a double-digit dog to Ohio State or Indiana, and probably even Notre Dame. And yet, they're still worthy of making the playoffs because strength of schedule is everything. Give me Penn State at plus 350, Kel.
Yeah, Marco and I will not complain about 10 wins from Penn State, and I definitely won't complain about 10 wins from Texas Tech. Let's get into BYU. This was a team I did not go over during the Big 12 because I have a lot more to say about this team. Plus 325 to get into the college football playoff. If you guys remember, 2 years ago it was Arizona State. Last year it was Texas Tech. I do think that this is Kalani Sitake's best team yet, and it kind of seems like a lot of the college football guys agree with me. Phil Steele, Brett Ciancia, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. Yes, you guys can correct me in the comments. And if, again, you're new to the show, I pronounce names wrong all the time. BYU returned every single one of their all Big 12 players from their 12-2 team last year. 0 transfers. That is damn near unheard of. And then you've got to look and see that they added one of the best linebackers in Cade Ulave in this last cycle. And this is a defense that is going to absolutely feast here in the Big 12. I do also think you've got to consider that they have one of the top offensive lines, one of the top secondaries, and they also have a top quarterback. So you've got 6 top 3 units in 8 different categories. And yes, I will say the receivers may need some work. We're going to find out here really early to see how good BYU is. Again, that offensive line is going to absolutely help. Bachmeier, again, who threw for over 3,000 yards and ran for 527 as a true freshman. The guy didn't even have spring ball last year. You've got LJ Martin as the running back, reigning Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. 1,305 yards. He posted 100 yards per game after that shoulder injury that ended up having to require surgery. That kid is absolutely tough. I think top to bottom, BYU is the best team in the Big 12. They win the Big 12, they get into the college football playoff. Now, I know we already talked about a lot of regular season wins here, and so we're going to continue to go into those because there are a lot that we've not only posted for free over at WagerTalk, given to our clients, but are going to give to you guys here today. Marco, you get to go first. We're going to go back to the Big 10, and this one's going to upset some people. Kirk Cignetti, is he due for some regression this season?
Well, Kelly, I can't have a bet on it show and not say fat and sassy. Come on. All right. How many beers you think he had in the offseason celebrating the national championship? We've seen how many interviews did he say, I'm going to go have a cold one after the game? And don't get me wrong, I like Kirk Cignetti. This is a Pennsylvania boy that he's won everywhere he's gone, okay? But this is uncharted water, okay? Now you've got a major bullseye on your back. And you know what? You're going into battle. You don't have Fernando Mendoza, okay, is your quarterback anymore. And what a season he had. Obviously, Heisman Trophy winner. But the key with Mendoza last year, don't forget, they had a couple very close games where, they had to pull it out at the end. The Oregon game, that could have went either way. Remember the game against Penn State? They should have lost that game, pulled that out at the end. And they had the magical run, obviously, through the playoffs. And who could forget the dive at the goal line at the end of the game against Miami for the national championship? He was a playmaker. He made those plays. But more importantly, there's a phrase in, football that you hear, he's got a high football IQ. He did. Now, the quarterback that's coming in, I don't know, okay? It's Josh Hoover, and he put up huge numbers at TCU, okay? This is the active leader in the FBS. He has thrown for 9,600 yards passing, 71 touchdowns. Great. Let's, hand him the Heisman. No. He's got another stat that's very alarming, and I can't wait to see Kurt Cignetti's face when Hoover has one of those games where he throws 3 interceptions. This is a guy that has had 31 career starts. He's got 42 interceptions. Okay, he's turned the ball over 42 times. This is a guy that I had a lot of plays last year on TCU, and they would be rolling early, and he'd throw 2 of the most stupidest passes and let the other team back in the game. I am not sold on them. Okay, the Big Ten is tough. We talked about all of the matchups that are in there, that it's top heavy. And then we all like Penn State as a sleeper. Here's the other thing that makes this a play. It's at 10.5. That means you got to, win 11 to cash a ticket if you're taking the over. There's 4 games on the schedule that is going to decide this. And that's going to be when Indiana has to play Ohio State and Michigan in back-to-back games. And those back-to-back games come where they play 3 road games in a 4-game stretch. Now, there is a bye week sandwiched in there to help them. But still, Ohio State and Michigan back-to-back is going to be tough. Then, towards the end of the season, the next to last 2 games, they got another back-to-back tough spot. They got USC and Washington. I don't see them going through that 4-game stretch without going 2-2. I see them getting 2 losses somewhere out of that 4-game stretch. And that's all we need to happen is in that stretch. And I'm taking this one under the 10.5. I think it's inflated because of what we saw last year. Everything went their way. All of the close games, they found a way to win at the end until Hoover can prove to me that he is that big game quarterback. And I'm going to tell you, Kelly, you got to agree. The defenses in the Big Ten are a hell of a lot tougher than the defenses in the Big 12. Welcome to the Big Ten, my friend. Let's see how you do, Josh Hoover.
All right, VR. For all of you guys that were mad that we aren't talking about some of the smaller schools, he said, fine, I'll give you guys a max season win total. VR, talk to me about this Toledo team, because admittedly, I went through all of the college football reading this summer, and I thought, I'll just text Ralph Michaels. Like, that was literally my attitude. Like, if I need to know about a team in the MAC, maybe I'll ask Brian Leonard. Some of these smaller schools tend to fall to the wayside, but I know that's where you can find some of the most value.
Yeah, and no knock or disrespect to those preview magazines, and they offer a lot of good information, and especially before the season starts. We're all guessing, we're all projecting, and it's good to have that info in front of you, returning starters, new head coaches, that kind of stuff. But the one thing I don't pay attention is to projections. If anything, I tend to want to go contrarian to the noise. And you're going to get a ton of preseason noise. Now, as far as the MAC goes, the noise is regression from Toledo is expected. I don't agree with it. Number one, they made one of the most impressive transfer moves and landed like 11 incoming players that all earned all conference honors at their previous schools. They've got a really, really solid defense, number one, which is what I like. A lot of variance on offense. And more importantly, a very manageable strength of schedule. coupled with a history that just has been able to go over this win total. You got to go back to 2021 to where this Toledo team has won less than 8 games. And the win total is at 7.5 because of the expected regression on Toledo. Like, that's been the noise. And again, I disagree. This is one of the best programs to not make a playoff. If you look over the last couple seasons, and it's all because of the coaching. I mean, look at the lineage there. You had Saban, Pinkel, Campbell, that gone through Toledo. And I think they're still one of the elite MAC teams. And at 7.5, that's a very, very attainable win total. I got to the window with that. I sent it out to subscribers at -110. Not sure what the price is right now, but I'd be comfortable laying up to -130, maybe 135 at the most, because I do think 6 out of 10 times they get to 8 games at least over Toledo, my total.
All right, we're up against it time-wise, so I'm going to keep this short and sweet because we've already talked about Penn State ad nauseum, and I know come December, if they don't win 10 games, boy, oh boy, are you guys going to let us hear about it. So really quickly, bottom line, they have the softest draw in the league. No Indiana, no Ohio State, no Oregon. Their opponents this year went 40% last year in Big Ten play. They play 0 Power 4 non-conference games. I think it kind of screams to the over, and maybe that's why VR said, hey, sharp money came in here early as a contrarian play. But I did give this one for free out over on WagerTalk.com. And I do think that the market's already priced in the soft schedule, which is why this didn't make a premium card for me. But I also do trust Matt Campbell in his first season at State College. He has a new defensive coordinator and a new defensive line because almost everybody transferred out. But almost everybody transferred from Iowa State. And this is a really solid, disciplined team. Yes, we are asking them to level up in the Big Ten, but I think Matt Campbell and his staff are the ones to do it. Let's count the wins. Marshall, at Temple, Buffalo, Wisconsin, at Northwestern, Purdue, Minnesota, Rutgers, at Maryland. There's 9 games where they are favored, and most of those probably within a touchdown, if not higher. Then you've got a coin flip versus USC at home, a team who we know has faltered several times in the Eastern time zone since joining the Big Ten. And I do think that they have a outside chance to win the conference, sprinkled a little bit on those guys at 22-1. Marco, we're going to go right into a long shot here. Wow, I'm looking at these going, wow, I'm the one with the short national championship. These boys really came and brought the heat. Marco, Ole Miss, tell me why this team has a shot to win the national championship.
Well, Kelly, we're just scared of you, okay? You say no small prices. You want big ones, and that's what we brought you. So, Ole Miss, 50-1. That's you can get that at Circa right now. I think Ole Miss is going to be the under the radar team in the SEC. Why? Well, because all of the attention of what happened last year. It was a dream season with Ole Miss. They were undefeated heading into the playoffs, national championship aspirations. And then what happens? Lane Kiffin does Lane Kiffin. He bolts from a team again. And just the whole way that went down last year, I'm not a fan of it. And I think they're on a mission this year. And it starts with the quarterback, Trinidad Chambliss. Boy, what a season he had last year. He's a Heisman-level quarterback. He won his case to get another year's eligibility, so he returns. And you go back to that playoff game against Georgia last year, he single-handedly won that game for Ole Miss. So you've got a big game quarterback coming back. And just in case, as I mentioned it with one of the other teams I previewed, they've got an insurance policy, quarterback depth. They've got a former 5-star transfer from Auburn, Deuce Knight, sitting as an insurance policy, waiting in the wings if something happens to Chambliss, which is always a problem when you got a dual threat quarterback that likes to run a lot. You've got pretty much continuity. A lot of key members of the staff stayed here. And the ones that did, as I said, they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. They got something to prove that they are a good team, and that was not a flash in the pan, one-hit wonder. Strong running game. Lacey last year, what an elite workhorse he was. He had 1,500 yards last year. That was in 24 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns last year, led the Power Four conferences. They got depth because they got some key transfers coming in to this team. So you got depth there. And the wide receiver room, they got to rebuild that, but they got some good guys that they picked up there. I like this team. I think, again, you know how the committee feels about the SEC. If there's always going to be 3 or 4 teams getting into the playoffs from the SEC because it's a conference that gets the respect. I think this team is live, and if they finish second or third best team, they're going to get an invite, and I'll take them to have a shot. Anything can happen once you're in the tournament, and 50-1, pretty good odds. And speaking of national championship, you want to ride along through the national championship with me, Gianni, or Kelly? You can do so and save yourself $100. If you use coupon code BET100, you can take $100 off a college football subscription, an NFL subscription, or the package deal, college and NFL combo. Save yourself $100 with coupon code BET100. And if you want to team up with the Bet On It crew, get 2 or more of the Bet On It crew, you can get an even better deal. Just email support@wagertalk.com and ask for a package deal. Tell them what cappers you want, and we'll put together a special offer for you, saving you even more. That's Bet100 for $100 off any individual capper, or email support@WagerTalk for a special package deal.
I need to go find a new national champion because VR's is even higher. He says Penn State.
Yeah.
Shocker. We're going Penn State yet again here. 60-1. So you think they're going to get in the college football playoff, and you think they actually have a shot to win this?
Kel, here's the key. When I sent them out to my subscribers, I narrowed down 3 teams for national championship. One, I'm very certain is going to be side A of the national championship. I rarely release that big in college football, but I put 5% play on a team to win the national championship. But side B is open. I'm not saying Penn State's going to be the side B, but here is what I'm saying, that Penn State would only be about a 10-point dog to this team. And we've seen in the college football playoffs that exact situation where, because it's a 1 game, they're not playing 7 games. And as long as you get to the playoffs, you have a shot. And we've seen national championship games with double-digit spreads because of this exact reason. Now, with that said, here's what's more important, and I won't go long. But at 60-1, and one subscriber sent me, he got it at 100 and something to 1. But here's the thing with Penn State, and I know you may disagree with me, and you should. There'll be a lot of people that disagree with me, but numbers don't lie. And 2 out of the last 3 years, I finished number 1 in profit in college football because of my power ratings. And here's what I can tell you, that Penn State on a neutral field should be, not would be, should be favored over Texas, favored over Miami, favored over Michigan, favored over Utah, favored over USC, favored over Vanderbilt, favored over Texas Tech, favored over all of those teams. And a lot of them are higher ranked than Penn State is right now. So they're as undervalued as they come, even though me, you, and Mark are all high on them. Rest assured, the rest of the world is not. That's why you're watching this show. And at 60-1, at 50-1 or better, I love Penn State. At 60-1, you got if they have a 2% chance, that's a plus EV bet. They just have a 2% chance. And I can tell you with certainty, there's not 15 teams better than Penn State. I don't think there's 11 teams better than Penn State, but I'm certain there's not 15 teams better than Penn State. So at 60-1, I'm all over the Nittany Lions.
All right, Mark already said it. Three SEC teams, maybe 4 SEC teams get into the 12-team college football playoff. And while they might not win the national championship, I thought there was some really good value on the Oklahoma Sooners sitting here at 30-1. I bet this team at 12-1 to win the SEC. I bet this team at 30-1 over at the Hard Rock to win the national championship. Look, we got to get them there. Once we get them there, we can figure out what to do with it. I do think that this is an Oklahoma team that a lot of people are sleeping on due to the schedule. First glance, it looks really tough. You got a road game at Michigan. You're a 9-point dog to Georgia in September. But you get the Red River rivalry versus Texas coming off a bye week. And then it is smooth sailing versus the middle of the pack SEC from there on out. I've always been told by the SEC fans in my mention, it's not how you start, but how you finish in that conference. And I do think Oklahoma has a very good shot to be playing in the championship game in Atlanta in December, getting themselves into the college football playoff, even if they lose that game. Have you guys seen John Mateer? When I saw him at SEC Media Days, I was like, oh my God, someone is going to give him a piss test. The kid is jacked. Not only him, they're returning 16 starters. I do think that this is a well-coached team. You've got a healthy Jackson Arvidsson. This team looks like it's primed to win 10 games in the SEC. I know that sounds crazy talk, but it is true. I like Oklahoma to go over their season win total, Oklahoma to get in the college football playoff, Oklahoma to win the SEC, and of course, Oklahoma to win the national championship. All right, guys, we've got an NFL preview to get to. So we're going to get out of here. Jump in the comment section. Tell us who you guys like as your favorite season win total, who you guys like to win their prospective conference, and of course, who you guys think is going to win the national championship. We'll see you back here in a few short weeks for the start of college football season. Until then, let's bet on it.